They've done a great job of rigging this. They've done a great job of rigging this league. The league, they're not even being subtle. They're not even being subtle. Oh my God, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing.
If it wasn't already the Indiana Fever versus the World this season, if it wasn't already the Indiana Fever versus the World this season,
everything you could possibly need was present in the match against
the Fever's game against the reigning champion New York Liberty.
High stakes for star power for many. The intensity of a playoff game combined with an almost sold-out crowd felt like a preview of the championship.
High stakes,
Two of the most thrilling teams in the league square off against one another in front of a nationwide audience.
For many,
it should have been a huge victory for the NBA, but since it's the NBA, controversy was inevitable, and the officials were once again to blame.
I can't believe what I'm about to say. The Indiana Fever, with the strongest, loudest, most intimidating home court advantage in all the WNBA, just got robbed at home. I saw it with my own two eyes live on CBS.
Similar to the previous season, supporters were left scratching their heads or cursing at their screens over missed calls,
it should have been a major win for the
and
WNBA
instances that gave the winning team the advantage.
But of course, it's the
Social
WNBA.
media was quickly inundated with fans and commentators pointing it out.
Had to be controversial.
But I will just say the lopsided officiating was absolutely insane.
The controversy isn't just about a few missed calls, though let's be clear those were brutal, and we'll get into them in just a second. The real issue is that this is part of a much bigger pattern that started last year, got worse in the preseason, and now is reaching a boiling point just a few games into the regular season. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just wait until you hear some of the stats about how lopsided the officiating has been against the Fever this season. It's not just one or two games, it's every game, and the numbers are downright embarrassing for the league. It's gotten so bad that even the Fever have had enough. Head coach Stephanie White didn't hold back.
The outrage was
after the Liberty game. It wasn't vague, it wasn't diplomatic, it was a straight up
and the controversy isn't just about
even Caitlin Clark, who usually keeps it cool through in a little dig of her own. Let's get into exactly what happened. But first, like this video, if you think the refs are unfair to the Fever, comment if you disagree,
and we'll get into them in just a second.
Don't forget to subscribe.
The real issue.
This is another year and another case of WNBA referees dropping the ball, not making the right calls when it comes to Caitlin Clark.
The issue is that this is part of a much bigger
and even
pattern.
players are furious about what we're going to witness. And it's not
the pattern that started last
year,
early and frequently.
Got worse in the preseason,
last
year when Caitlin Clark appeared
and now is reaching
shaken.
A boiling point just a
the
few
bad
games
night by
into
the referees
season.
is
And now
part
is reaching
of a
a boiling point just a few games into the regular
borderline
season.
dangerous pattern that dates back to the previous season.
And if you think I'm
From
exaggerating,
the moment Caitlin Clark
just wait until you hear some of the stats about how lopsided the officiating. Wait until you hear some of the stats about how lopsided the officiating has been against the
Players
Fever
were
this
taking
season.
extra liberties, and the referees swallowed their whistles.
I feel like I'm getting hammered. I don't know. I appreciate Christy getting a tech too. Like, I don't know.
It's not just one or two games.
There was
it's not
the
just
Kennedy
one or two
Carter
games.
incident,
it's every game.
which was the hit
and the numbers are
throughout
downright
the league.
embarrassing for the league.
In what was obviously a frustration foul,
and the numbers are
Caitlin
downright
Clark
embarrassing
was
for the league.
blindsided off the ball.
It's gotten so bad
and the referees
that even
called
the Fever
it a common
have had
foul
enough.
rather than a
It's
flagrant.
gotten so bad
for
that
many
even
fans,
the Fever have had
this was
enough.
the tipping point.
Head coach
and
Stephanie
if it wasn't
White
going
didn't
to be
hold back after the Liberty game. Head coach Stephanie White didn't hold back after the Liberty game.
It
wasn't vague.
They
it wasn't diplomatic.
Caitlin all the
it was
way
a straight
into
up.
the playoffs.
It wasn't vague.
Like even in the playoffs last year, do we not remember when Caitlin Clark is shooting a layup and she's in the air and Marina Mabry commits a block, a hit on the arm, a blocking foul, like a whatever hit on the arm foul, everything. She just comes late and is like, Caitlin's not getting a layup. Jumps sideways into her, takes her arms out, knocks Caitlin on the ground, and then stops because she knows she's fouled, and the referees are like, play on, play on.
Since she
it wasn't
Caitlin
diplomatic.
Clark,
it was a straight up warning
always
shot.
Play her hard.
And even Caitlin
and there
Clark,
are simply
who usually keeps
too
it
many
cool,
examples to include in
and
a
even
single
Caitlin Clark,
film.
who usually keeps
you could
it cool,
create a whole
threw in a little
documentary
dig of her
just
own.
from the missed calls.
Let's get into exactly
and
what
hey,
happened. Threw
no
in a
one
little
is
dig of her
requesting
own.
a bubble wrap
Let's get into
rulebook
exactly
here.
what happened.
There is no
first,
issue with
like
hard
this video,
fouls
if you think
or
the refs
allowing
are
the game
unfair
to flow. And
first,
she is the
like
best
this video,
player
if you
on the
think the
court
refs
most
are
nights.
unfair to the Fever,
The issue is
comment
that she
if you
hasn't
disagree.
been
Fair to the
consistent.
Fever.
Fever
Comment
seems
if
to
you
always
disagree.
get the short
And
end
don't
of the
forget to
stick,
subscribe.
and things didn't get any
don't
better
forget to
during the
subscribe.
preseason.
It is kind of interesting that Caitlin Clark hasn't been to the free throw line at all.
Caitlin Clark wasn't getting any free throws, zero, and it's not because she wasn't getting fouled. It's because the refs were flat out ignoring it in the first few games alone. There's already a clear pattern. Clark drives, takes contact, gets hacked, and nothing whistles stay in pockets. Eventually, the frustration boiled over. You could see it in her body language, and you could definitely feel it when she picked up a 10 just for pointing out the obvious. And in the 3 regular season games, leading up to the matchup against the Liberty, the imbalance continued. Stephanie White's going to lay out the numbers in a minute, and they're mind-blowing. We're talking clear as day disparity, but still some people brushed it off, said it's just early season stuff, thought things would settle down, and the officiating would get more consistent. Well, the Fever's marquee matchup against the Liberty, the defending champs, was the perfect test. And before we get into the controversy, let's be clear, this was a great game full of drama. The crowd was loud, the energy was playoff level, and both teams showed out.
I mean, they have 9 baskets, and I have one officially with 7 right-handed layups.
Oh, Clark found a hole in the defense.
Now, Caitlin's going to wait for Aaliyah Boston here.
Goes over the top. Boston, the catch fading away, goes off the glass.
As you can see, there was a strong bond between Caitlin and Aaliyah.
You had the Kennedy Carter
Caitlin was threading the needle on passes, and Aaliyah was finishing strong in the paint.
The hit heard round the league.
They were reading each other mid-play and causing serious issues for New York's defense.
And what did the refs call was clearly a frustration foul?
Making big plays all over the court, and Aaliyah Boston reminded everyone why she was the number 1 pick in 2023.
This is the best passing connection I can remember since John Stockton was feeding Karl Malone back in the Utah days.
It was the boiling point for many fans.
Even though Caitlin didn't have an all-time great performance by her usual standards, she still produced moments that made you realize exactly who she is.
If that wasn't going to get upgraded
she made
in real
jaw-dropping passes,
what would?
hit tough shots, and had a few sequences that made the building fall apart. Even on a bad night, she managed to leave her fingerprints all over the game, which is what makes stars stand out from superstars.
There are honestly too many examples to even show
Although
in
it
one
wasn't
video.
her loudest
You could
line,
make an entire
there were
documentary
still
out
a
of the
lot of
missed calls
highlights in the
alone.
performance.
You could make an
No pass shot possessions for New York. Clark, step back 3. Oh, she hit it and draws the foul. Out defending. Clark trying to create some airspace. Long 3 at the horn. Oh!
Could make an entire documentary out of the missed calls alone.
It had all the makings
She's
of the kind of marquee matchup the NBA
that comes with a
dreams
target
of.
on you. And look,
Two evenly
nobody's
matched
asking
teams
for a bubble
playing
wrap
at
rule book
playoff
here.
level intensity.
Players are always going to
a
play
boisterous
Caitlin hard
crowd in an
because she's
independent
Caitlin Clark.
arena,
And look,
and a tight score
nobody's asking
throughout.
for a bubble wrap
However,
rule book here.
when the final
Players
whistle
are always
blew,
going to play Caitlin.
none
the
of
best
that
player
made
on
the
the court most
headlines,
nights.
and the
That
only
comes with a
topic of
target on your back. She's the
conversation
best
was
player
the
on the court most
referees.
nights.
It was one of the worst referee games I've seen.
The referees for again, what, the second game in a row, I guess? Definitely for the second game of the season, the referees swallowed their freaking whistles.
The disparity in the number of foul calls was evident as the day the Liberty were living at the free throw line and receiving 32 attempts, while the Fever only received 15, more than twice as many in a close game like this.
The Fever seemed to always get the short end of the foul stick there.
It was also the manner in which the fouls were called. The Liberty were receiving touch fouls while Caitlin and her teammates were being body checked without a whistle,
Caitlin Clark wasn't
giving
getting
the
any free
impression that
throws,
two different sets of rules
Caitlin Clark
were in
wasn't
effect.
getting any free.
The New York Liberty were at the line 32 times to the Fever's 15, and it was just so obvious. Now, I get calling fouls, I get not calling fouls, but in this instance, there were similar fouls that were not getting called on the New York Liberty that were going towards the Fever. If you're going to call every ticky-tacky foul, okay, call it, but call it for both teams now.
However, there was this Caitlin Clark incident during the preseason.
It's because the refs were. It's not because she wasn't getting fouled.
And the referees
it's because
chose
the refs
to ignore
were
it
flat
without
out
making
ignoring
any
it.
calls
In the
or
first few games
providing
alone,
any
we're
protection.
flat out ignoring it.
Eventually,
in the first
began
few games
to seem
alone,
like they were
there's already a
intentionally
clear
telling
pattern.
the other teams
Clark
that it was
drives,
open
takes
season
contact.
and
There's
that
already
they
a clear
needed
pattern.
to protect
Clark
Caitlin
drives,
Clark.
takes contact.
They just kept shoving Caitlin. They're like, well, they can't keep calling. They can't just keep calling fouls. I'm like, they're literally just running around hacking her. The referees have made it like a point that this is how you beat the Fever. You hack them. You don't even, it's not being physical. You just hack them. Because the referees are going to allow them be hacked. Late in the game with the Fever, hack them. Not being physical, hack them. Don't go for the ball, hack them.
However,
gets hacked,
if the refereeing wasn't already harsh
the
overall, the
gets
game's
hacked,
closing
and nothing.
seconds
Whistles stay in
completely
the
sealed the
pockets.
draw,
Eventually, the
putting
frustration
the Fever
boiled
in a prime
over.
position
You could
to
see it,
steal
and
a
eventually the
victory against
frustration
the
boiled
defending
over.
champions
You could see it
before
in
the
her body
referees
language,
took
and you
control.
could definitely.
What was that play? Oh my God, this is rigged. This is rigged. She got yanked, fell on her hip. That's a hack. That's a hack. That's a hack. Oh my God, they hacked Luana Bonner and they hacked Caitlin Clark. They are both hacks. They are both hacks. They hacked Fever twice, and then there was a phantom foul called on Sabrina Ionescu.
Definitely
Dana
feel it
Bonner
when she
drove
picked
to
up a
the
tech, her
hoop
body language,
and was hammered
and you
first,
could definitely feel
with
it
the
when she
game
picked up a
tied
tech
and the
just for
Fever
pointing out
trying
the
to
obvious.
grab the
Heck,
lead.
just for pointing.
And this is the worst one. There's one foul. There's two fouls. Then she holds her, watch this, with her shoulder and on her arm when she follows through and then fouls her for the fourth time on her arm.
For pointing out the
Significant
obvious.
body touch,
Just for
then
pointing
came
out
the
the
phantom
obvious.
foul,
And in the three
which was
regular
the
season
ultimate
games
gut
leading up
punch
to the
that the
matchup against the
referees
Liberty, and in the
weren't
three
finished
regular
with.
season games
Lexi
leading
Hall
up to the
played
matchup against the
textbook
Liberty,
defense on
the
Sabrina
imbalance
Ionescu
continued, and they're
and wasn't the
mind-blowing.
one who made
We're
contact.
talking clear as
but
day.
2 free
Stephanie
throws
White's going
were
to lay out
awarded.
the numbers in a
Then
minute.
came the
for
worst
Liberty.
of them all,
The imbalance
the final
continued,
possession.
and they're
Literally, the Fever have a chance to win the game, to go up 2. They jump through her back. Caitlin Clark shooting a shot, and Natasha Howard does the dumbest thing she can possibly do by fouling Caitlin Clark on a 3-point shot, and you ignored it. And you ignored it.
There are multiple fouls on the play, multiple fouls. She hacks her across the wrist as she's reaching to try to slap the ball away, and it was just an arm hack, just a hack. And then as Caitlin tries to go up into, she's going left, but she's trying to go up into her shooting motion, there's body foul, and then there's an arm foul.
And they're
Caitlin Clark
mind-blowing.
was fouled
We're
several
talking clear
times
as
with
day
a
disparity.
final
Stephanie
opportunity
White's going to lay
to
out the
tie
numbers
or
in a
win the
minute day
game,
disparity.
and the
But still,
referees swallowed
some people
the whistle.
brushed it off.
Her face
Said
was
it's just early
instantly
season
enraged,
stuff.
arms
That things
out,
would settle down.
screaming in shock,
But still,
and the most
some people
outrageous
brushed it
part
off,
was
would
that
settle
the
down,
referees
and the
refused to
officiating
even
would
look her
get
in
more
the eye,
consistent. Said
leaving
it's
the
just early
NBA
season
analysts
stuff.
stunned.
That things would.
The WNBA referees are getting destroyed. And I mean, they are getting crushed online. Honestly, they're getting crushed during every single game. I've seen a lot of people come out and say, the WNBA referees, is this what it's about? Because they're the worst referees in the history of any referees.
Things
Additionally,
well, the
fans
Fever's
went
marquee
crazy
matchup
on
against
social
the
media
Liberty,
about the
to
referees
defend,
because this
and the
wasn't just a
officiating would
missed
get
call
more
or two.
consistent. The
The
defending
game's
champs
inconsistency
was the
screamed
perfect
that
test.
the anti-Fever
before,
and
the Fever's marquee
anti-Caitlin
matchup
bias
against the
is
Liberty,
still alive
and before
and
we
well.
get into the controversy,
Fans pointed out that
let's
her
be clear,
opponents were
champs
receiving
was the
gift-wrapped
perfect
free
test.
throws for
And
looking
clear.
contact
This
while
was a great
Clark
game,
was being mauled on
full of
drives
drama.
without whistles.
Before we get into
the Indiana Fever this season have a discrepancy minus 31 when it comes to free throws. That doesn't seem right.
the
The
controversy.
problem is that it's not
Let's be
just an isolated
the crowd
incident.
was loud.
Rather,
The energy
it's a
was
pattern,
playoff. The
a
crowd
trend,
was loud.
a reality
The energy
supported
was
by
playoff
statistics,
level.
and it's
both
gotten
teams
so bad
showed
that
out.
even
Playoff
head
level.
coach Stephanie
And both
White and
teams
Caitlin
showed
Clark
out.
are beginning
Lexi
to
Hull
speak
was a
out.
spark plug,
Those
making
clips
big
will be
plays
released
all
soon.
over. Lexi Hull
But
was a spark
first,
plug,
let's
making big
discuss what
plays
fans
all over
are
the court.
actually pointing
And
out
Aaliyah
regarding
Boston
the
all over
free
the
throw
court.
disparity.
And Aaliyah
It's taken 4 games for Stephanie White to say, you know what? I've had absolute enough. Game 1, okay. Game 2, okay. Game 3, all right. But today was the last straw.
Shout out to Stephanie White. The Fever coach stood up for her team. She demanded respect, and she blasted the refs.
And Aaliyah Boston reminded everyone
The Fever
exactly
are down
why she was
31
the number
in
one.
free
Did
throw
everyone
opportunities
exactly
this
why
season,
she was the
which
number
is a
one
startling
pick
disparity
in
in a league
2023.
where games
One
are
pick
frequently
in
decided by a
2023.
small number
And
of
as you
possessions.
saw, there was a great
Being on the
connection
losing end
between
of a
Caitlin, and as you
30-plus
saw,
free
there
throw
was a great
swing
connection
isn't
between
just a warning
Caitlin and
sign.
Aaliyah.
It's a
The chemistry was
5-alarm
obvious.
fire.
Caitlin
Sure,
wasn't an Aaliyah.
most players and
The
coaches
chemistry was
try to
obvious.
remain neutral
Caitlin
and
was
chalk it
threading
up
the
to a
needle on
single
passes,
aspect of the
and
game.
Aaliyah was
But
finishing
when you
strong,
add up
threading
all
the
the
needle
missed
on
calls,
passes, and Aaliyah was
non-whistles, and
finishing strong in
game-changing
the
moments
paint.
that consistently
They were
go
reading
against
each
them,
other.
something
Strong
has
in
to
the
be
paint.
said.
They were
And
reading each
Stephanie
other,
White made it clear
communicating
that she had
mid-play,
had enough.
and creating.
I thought she got fouled. You know, I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. You know, a minus 31 free throw discrepancy. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes, but we're not. We're attacking the rim. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing. that it doesn't go both ways, or it hasn't gone both ways.
And creating
Stephanie
real
White
problems
didn't hold back
mid-play,
at her post-game news
and creating
conference.
real problems for
she
New York's
called out the
defense,
referees for the
defense.
blatant disrespect
And while Caitlin
that has
didn't
been
have an
growing
all-time
over
great
the season.
performance by her
Stephanie White has lost her mind over it, and I don't blame her. I mean, at least she's standing up for the team, making it a public issue. So now the WNBA is at least on notice that everybody knows it now. That this
coaches don't want to do this.
And while Caitlin
Nobody
didn't have an
calling out the
all-time great
referees,
performance by her
but
usual
when it becomes
standards,
this obvious,
she still